winds impregnate the clouds. And we send the fecundating winds, then cause the rain to descend from the sky, therewith providing you with water in abundance. Al-Qur'an, chapter 15, verse 22. The Arabic word used here is lawaqih, which is the plural of laqih from laqaha, which means to impregnate or fecundate. In this context, impregnate means that the wind pushes the clouds together, increasing the condensation that causes lightning and thus rain. A similar description is found in the Qur'an. It is Allah who sends the winds, and they raise the clouds. Then does He spread them in the sky as He wills and break them into fragments, until thou seest raindrops issue from the midst thereof. Then when He has made them such of His servants as He wills, behold, they do rejoice. Al-Qur'an, chapter 30, verse 48. The Qur'anic descriptions are absolutely accurate and agree perfectly with modern data on hydrology. The sun will extinguish after a certain period. The light of the sun is due to a chemical process on its surface that has been taking place continuously for the past 5 billion years. It will come to an end at some point of time in the future when the sun will be totally extinguished, leading to the extinction of all life on earth. Regarding the impermanence of the sun's existence, the Qur'an says, "And the sun runs its course for a period determined for it. That is the decree of Him, the exalted in might, the all-knowing." Al-Qur'an 36:38. The Arabic word used here is mustaqar, which means a place of time that is determined. Thus the Qur'an says that the sun runs towards a determined place and will do so only up to a predetermined period of time, meaning that it will end or extinguish. This is Iman Haggag recording Spider's Web or Home is Fragile. The Qur'an mentions in Surah Al-Ankabut, the parable of those who take protectors other than Allah is that of the spider, who builds to itself a house, but truly the flimsiest of houses is the spider's house, if but they knew. Al-Qur'an, chapter 29, verse 41. Besides giving the physical description of the spider's web as being very flimsy, delicate, and weak, the Qur'an also stresses on the flimsiness of the relationship in the spider's house, where the female spider many times kills its mate, the male spider. For a long time, European philosophers and scientists believed that the Earth stood still in the center of the universe and every other body, including the sun, moved around it. In the West, this geocentric concept of the universe was prevalent right from the time of Ptolemy in the 2nd century BC. In 1512, Nicholas Copernicus put forward his heliocentric theory of planetary motion, which asserted that the sun is motionless at the center of the solar system with the planets revolving around it. In 1609, the German scientist Johannes Kepler published the Astronomia Nova. In this piece, he concluded that not only do the planets move in elliptical orbits around the sun, they also rotate upon their axes at irregular speeds. With this knowledge, it became possible for European scientists to explain correctly many of the mechanisms of the solar system, including the sequence of night and day. After these discoveries, it was thought that the sun was stationary and did not rotate about its axis like the Earth. I remember having studied this fallacy from geography books during my school days. Consider the following Qur'anic verse. "It is He who created the night and the day, and the sun and the moon. All the celestial bodies swim along, each in its rounded course." Al-Qur'an 21:33. The Arabic word used in the above verse is yasbahun. The word yasbahun is derived from the word sabaha. It carries with it the idea of motion that comes from any moving body. If you use the word for a man on the ground, it would not mean that he is rolling, but would mean he is walking or running. If you use the word for a man in water, it would not mean that he is floating, but would mean that he is swimming. Similarly, if you use the word yasbah for a celestial body such as the sun, it would not mean that it is only flying through space, but would rather mean that it is also rotating as it goes through space. Most of the school textbooks have incorporated the fact that the sun rotates about its axis. The rotation of the sun about its own axis can be proved with the help of an equipment that projects the image of the sun on the tabletop so that one can examine the image of the sun without being blinded. It is noticed that the sun has spots, which complete a circular motion once every 25 days, i.e., the sun takes approximately 25 days to rotate around its axis. In fact, the sun travels through space at roughly 150 miles per second and takes about 200 million years to complete one revolution around the center of our Milky Way galaxy. It is not permitted to the sun to catch up to the moon, nor can the night outstrip the day. Each just swims along in its own orbit, according to law. Al-Qur'an 36:40. The above verse mentions an essential fact discovered by modern astronomy, i.e., the existence of the individual orbits of the sun and the moon and their journey through space with their own motion. The fixed place towards which the sun travels, carrying with it the solar system, has been located exactly by modern astronomy. It has been given a name, the solar apex. The solar system is indeed moving in space towards a point situated in the constellation of Hercules, the Alpha layer, whose exact location is firmly established. The moon rotates around its axis in the same duration that it takes to revolve around the Earth. It takes approximately 29.5 days to complete one rotation. One cannot help but be amazed at the scientific accuracy of the Qur'an. The existence of subatomic particles. In ancient times, a well-known theory by the name of theory of atomism was widely accepted. This theory was originally proposed by the Greeks, in particular a man named Democritus, who lived about 23 centuries ago. Democritus and the people that came after him assumed that the smallest unit of matter was the atom. The Arabs used to believe the same. The Arabic word dharra is most commonly meant an atom. In recent times, modern science has discovered that it is possible to split even an atom. That the atom can be split further is a development of the 20th century. 14 centuries ago, this concept would have appeared unusual, even to an Arab. For him, the dharra was the limit beyond one could not go. The following Quranic verse, however, refuses to acknowledge this limit. The unbelievers say, "Never to us will come the hour," say, "Nay, but most surely by my Lord, it will come upon you, by him who knows the unseen, from whom is not hidden the least little atom in the heavens or on earth, nor is there anything less than that, or greater, but is in the record perspicuous." Al-Qur'an, chapter 34, verse 3. This verse refers to the omniscience of God, his knowledge of all things, hidden or apparent. It then goes further and says that God is aware of everything, including what is smaller or bigger than the atom. Thus, the verse clearly shows that it is possible for something smaller than the atom to exist, a fact only discovered recently by modern science. The flight of the birds. Regarding the flight of birds, the Qur'an says, "Do they not look at the birds, held poised in the midst of the air and the sky? Nothing holds them up but the power of Allah. Verily in this are signs for those who believe." Al-Qur'an, chapter 16, verse 79. A similar message is repeated in the Qur'an in the verse, "Do they not observe the birds above them, spreading their wings and folding them in? None can uphold them except Allah most gracious. Truly it is He that watches over all things." Al-Qur'an, chapter 67, verse 19. The Arabic word amsaka literally means to put one's hand on, seize, hold someone back, which expresses the idea that Allah holds the bird up in His power. These verses stress the extremely close dependence of the bird's behavior on divine order. Modern scientific data has shown the degree of perfection attained by certain species of birds with regard to the programming of their movements. It is only the existence of a migratory program in the genetic code of the birds that can explain the long and complicated journey that very young birds, without any prior experience and without any guide, are able to accomplish. They are also able to return to the departure point on a definite date. Professor Hamburger, in his book Power and Fragility, gives the example of a mutton bird that lives in the Pacific with its journey of over 15,000 miles in the shape of a figure 8. It makes this journey over a period of 6 months and comes back to its departure point with a maximum delay of 1 week. The highly complicated instructions for such a journey have to be contained in the bird's nervous cells. They are definitely programmed. Should we not reflect on the identity of this programmer?